Hola clase y bienvenidos. Hoy vamos a repasar el pretérito y la formación y los verbos irregulares. Okay, so what is the preterite? Remember that the preterite is the past tense. It deals with completed actions. These actions are done and over with. And remember that it talks specifically about the past, okay? So I drank coffee this morning, I got up at 5 o'clock, etc. To form the preterite, we all sang a song that went, our preterite is a, aste, o, amos, aron, ir forms are iste, yo, imos, hieron. Okay, most of you did very well at that song, and normal formation of preterite was not a problem for you. On your note guides, please make sure that if you do not already have these endings written down, that you get those copied down right now. Pause me if you need to. Okay, so formation of regular preterite is pretty easy once you have the song down. What we're going to spend the majority of our time with today is reviewing the irregulars. Okay, and that includes spelling changes, stem changes, and all of that. Okay, so let's first talk about some spelling changes that occur in the preterite. We know that if we have a kar, gar, zar verb, we will have a spelling change in the yo form, and that's the yo form only, in order to keep our pronunciation. Okay, so if we have the verb tocar, which means to play an instrument, if I didn't know any better, I would drop my AR and I would add A. But according to our pronunciation rules, that would be pronounced as tose. We don't want tose, so the C goes to QU, becoming yo toque. Same thing happens here with pagar. Okay, your G is going to go to GU in order to keep that hard G sound. So yo pagué. If I was to forget this spelling change and I did not add my U, I have written yo pagué. We don't want pagué. Lastly, if you have a zar verb, your Z will go to C. Okay, and we've seen that spelling change in Spanish 1. One of the first words you had was el lápiz, okay, L-A-P-I-Z. When you make that plural, los lápices, your Z became a C there as well. Okay, so I started, yo empecé. Let's look at an entire conjugation, just so you remember that this spelling change only occurs in the yo form. Okay, so tocar, to play an instrument, its entire conjugation, toqué, tocaste, tocó, tocamos, tocaron. Okay, I have written that spelling change down for you on your note guide. One thing you might want to do is be a little more specific. Do what we did on this slide. Go ahead and write that your C goes to QU, your G goes to GU, and your Z goes to C. Okay, now let's talk about stem changes in the preterite. In the preterite tense, only IR stem changing verbs will have a one-letter change, okay? And this change will occur in the sole of the boot. So what do I mean by the sole of the boot? Well, with present tense, we know that stem changes occur in the boot here. Okay, so for preterite, only the sole of the boot will have the stem change. So that, like the sole of your shoe, is at the bottom. Okay? And lastly, let's look at how I coded this up here. We've talked about this in class several times. A dormir is an O to UE, U verb. What I mean by that is this first UE is for present tense stem change, and this U, okay, after the comma, this U is for preterite and present progressive. All right, let's take a look at how dormir is conjugated in the preterite. It's an IR verb, so it will have ER, IR endings. Remember, ER, IR forms are iste, yo, imos, hieron. Okay, dormir's entire conjugation, dormí, dormiste, dormió, dormimos, dormieron. Okay, so again, on your note guide, I did write you a note that only IR verbs have a one-letter change in the sole of the boot. It would probably be a good idea to go ahead and write down this entire conjugation of dormir and highlight this area or underline the U's as I did to draw your attention to the fact that stem changes only occur in the sole of the boot. Okay, let's move down to the your irregular preterite verbs at the bottom of your note guide. Before we get there, I'm so sorry, we do have some common verbs that we have seen time and time again in Spanish too that are stem changers. Okay, pedir, to ask for, idu I, servir, idu I, vestirse, idu I, competir, itu I, seguir, itu I, and preferir, itu I. Okay, those are all high frequency verbs you'll see that have stem changes in the preterite, along with dormir. Okay, let's look at our irregular verbs. It's up to you. I left you space. You may conjugate the verb all the way out in the preterite, or you can just write the yo form. Depends on your comfort with these irregulars. Okay, the first verb that we have is ir. Ir means to go. It's completely irregular in the formation in preterite tense, so its conjugation is fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fueron. Notice there is no I here in the they form. Many of us were putting fueron. We do not want that, just fueron. The conjugation of ser in the preterite tense is also fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fueron. Okay, so as you've noticed here, ser and ir share the exact same conjugation. How you will tell them apart is context of the sentence. Okay, our next irregular verb is ver. Ver is an ER verb, and you'll notice that ver has ER-IR endings. I, iste, yo, imos, ieron. So what makes it irregular? Well, there are no accents. No accent in the yo, no accent in the he, she. Okay, lastly, dar is to give, and dar is irregular as well in the preterite. It's an AR verb, but it has ER-IR endings. And no accents, so we have di, diste, dio, dimos, dieron. Okay, the next 10 verbs you see on your note guide, poder through traer. Those are all what we call irregular stem verbs in the preterite. So let's define what is a stem. Remember, the stem is what's left once you remove the AR, ER, or IR. So that first verb you see on the list there is poder. If we didn't know any better, we would think in preterite the stem of poder was P-O-D. Okay, but it's not because it's an irregular stem verb. So, here are the 10 verbs you see. They're in order on your note guide. Here's the irregular stem that we were just talking about with poder. Its irregular stem is pud. Okay, poner, to put, place, or set. Its irregular stem is pus. Estar, to be. Its irregular stem, estuv. Saber, to know information and facts. Its irregular stem is sup. Tener, to have. Its irregular stem is tuv. Hacer, to do or to make. Its irregular stem, is. Venir, to come. Its irregular stem, ven. Querer, to want. Its irregular stem, quis. Decir, to say or to tell. Its irregular stem is dich. And traer, to bring. Its irregular stem is tra. Okay? So, once you have the irregular stem for all of these verbs, all you need to do is add in the endings. For all 10 of these verbs, all irregular stem verbs share this set of endings right here. You'll notice that these endings is a mixture. They are a mixture of AR and ER regular preterite endings. You'll also notice that there are no accents. Okay, so it's a, iste, o, imos, hierro. Okay, so I will do an example for you. Let's look at the verb venir. Okay, so venir means to come. Remember, its irregular stem is VIN. So when we go to conjugate it, we wrote VIN in the entire box, and then we just add these endings. A, iste, o, imos, hierron. Okay, so the conjugation of venir in the preterite is vine, viniste, vino, vinimos, vinieron. Okay, so you may want to go through on your irregular preterite section And at least make sure you have written down all the irregular stems. And then you may want to go ahead and pause me and conjugate all of them all the way out. Okay, now we are to the practice section. I did not put in this entire section, there are no just completely regular preterite verbs here because we're all pretty good at regular preterites. You'll notice that 1 and 2, these are cargar-zar verbs. On 3 and 4, you've got 2 stem changing verbs in the preterite. 5 and 6, these are irregular stem verbs. And then 7 and 8, those are just your 4 irregular verbs, ser, ir, dar, and ver, that we really can't fit into a category. Okay, so please pause me, work through these in the preterite tense, keeping in mind that all of them are irregular in some way. Okay, let's go over our answers. Yo almorcé. Notice it's a zar verb, so my Z went to C in the yo form. Number 2, nosotros sacamos un libro. Sacar is a car verb, but we weren't in the yo form, so we didn't have to change our C to QU. Just regular sacamos. Number 3, tú serviste la comida. You served the food. We didn't have a stem change here because we were not in the sole of the boot. And number 4, Juan pidió una bebida. We did have a stem change. Our E went to I because we were in the sole of the boot. 5, ellos supieron la verdad. They found out the truth. 6, yo tuve que trabajar ayer. I had to work yesterday. Okay, so both of these, remember, sup and tuv, irregular stem verbs. 7, nosotros fuimos al restaurante. And 8, mi amigo me dio el dinero. My friend gave me the money. If you put D here, DI, you got confused by the indirect object here. Okay, this says my friend gave the money to me. Okay, the may was not part of the subject, it was the indirect object pronoun. Okay, so that's it for the review of preterite tense. Please write down any questions that you may have. We'll do a little review before class, or at the beginning of class before your mini quiz. Okay, make sure you know your irregulars. There'll just be a few regular formations on the mini quiz. Muchas gracias.